Hi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day to everyone. We are from Group 1 and we will be presenting on the wine making process. Okay, we have 4 team members, but today the presenters will only be 2, me, Widat and Faris, and our other 2 members are Shafiq and Firdaus. Okay, let's go in. All right, wine. What is wine? Wine is a beverage that is made from fruits. But in this video, we're going to explain to you about wine made from grapes only. Most wine will be named after their own respective fruits, like other fruits, maybe apple and so on. But in our wine is the grape wine for today. All right. So what you see here is viticulture. Viticulture is the cultivation and the harvesting of grapes. That means like from the growing of grapes until we harvest it for wine or for as fruits to eat. Then we have vinification, which is the process of the production of wine when we have already obtained the grapes, and here is how we produce the wine. So all of this happened. The production of this wine will be occurring in the winery, as shown in the slide. All right. Now, here's the overall process of the wine making process. Okay, you can see there are 5 steps: harvesting, crushing and pressing, fermentation, clarification, and also aging and bottling. All right. So we will start from the first step, which is harvesting. Okay, harvesting can now be done with 2 ways. First is the hand picking, which like literally means just being picked by that with their hands, and the other way is by using machines. Okay, this harvesting is just the first step because they only obtain the ingredients, which is in our case grapes. All right. We're going to continue presentation by my friend Faris.
So after sorting of grapes in bunches, now it's time for crushing and pressing. So in the past, crushing is used to be done by feet, but people in which people used to storm the grapes flat in large bins or barrels. Even after that, after crushing, we get mass. So what is a mass? So the mass is after the result of crushing, in which the mass is fresh juice of grapes containing seeds, solids, and skins of the grapes. So up until crushing, the step for making white wine and red wines are the same. And we can use a red or white variety of grapes for making white wine, but red variety of grapes only can be used to make red wine. So if red wine is being made, then the must is allowed to sit to get additional tannins for flavoring and coloring. The time period for which must is allowed to sit is called maceration. So after the maceration juice portion is separated from must, and the process that separates the grape juice from the fiber and the other solid or the must is called pressing. So the juice portion separate from the must is called free run, and the rest of remains of must is now called as pomace. So next. Next. Okay. So now after crushing and pressing, after getting the pomace, now we head on to fermentation process. So in fermentation, the action of yeast upon sugar solution breaks down the sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide escapes into the air and we are left with the fermented beverage. And the sugar is obtained from the grape juice in case of wine. So if you left the mass or the grape juice on its own, the fermentation process starts naturally in 6 to 12 hours with the aid of what yeast present in the air. Most of the well-established wineries and vineyards prefer natural fermentation, but many also use cultured yeast to control the final outcome and to ensure consistency of wine. So the most commonly used cultured yeast in winemaking is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, in which the process of fermentation continues until all of the sugar is converted into alcohol by the yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So in which it will result in a dry wine. So if sweet wine is to be prepared, winemakers stop the fermenting process in between before all the sugars have been converted into alcohol. So at what point the process needs to stop is usually depend on the winemaker itself, how sweet the winemaker wants the wine to be. After fermentation, the resulting level of alcohol also, in wine also depends on the total sugar content of the grape juice that have been fermented. So it may also vary from one winemaker to another. Generally, the alcohol level is 10% in cool climates and goes as high as 15% in warm areas. And if you use Saccharomyces cerevisiae, as I mentioned before, it can go up to 20%. So the complete fermentation process may take about a week to a month or even more to convert the sugar into alcohol. So once the fermentation process is complete, next, the clarification begins, the clarification process. So in this process, we remove any tannins, proteins, and dead yeast from the wine. For clarification, we can either go for filtration or finding treatments. In filtration, we pass the wine through coffee filter-like material in which consists of series of very small holes or pores. And these holes work as a filter and only allows liquid and particles small enough to fit through. Large particles are held back and removed from the liquid. Another method of clarification is fining. Fining is done by introducing an agent to wine that physically binds with unwanted molecules, usually called as colloids. So these colloids include tannins, phenolics, and polysaccharides, the unwanted material. So the common fining agents include gelatin, isinglass, egg whites, casein, bentonite, and carbon. Once the binding is complete, the agglomeration precipitates out to the bottom of the vessel. Then the wine is tried to remove it from unwanted sediments and then racking, heading on to racking process, in which racking is a process of moving wine or beer from one container to another using gravity rather than a pump. So a pump can be disruptive to the beverage. After clarification, winemakers can either bottle the wine directly or they can give a wine additional aging. Now come to the last step. Next, which is aging and bottling of the wine. So aging refers to the group of reactions that tend to improve the flavor and taste of the wine. The term maturation or aging maturation is used for any changes those are made in wine after fermentation and before bottling. Nowadays, aging and maturation are used interchangeably. Aging can be done in the bottle, stainless steel or ceramic tanks or oak barrels. Many of the winemakers prefer oak barrels as it helps in increasing their oxygen exposure and also enabling the wine to reach to its flavor, desired flavor. And many winemakers use stainless steel tanks for white wine aging. And the time period of wine aging in the barrel depends on the grape variety or the style of wine that is desired by the winemaker being made. So it also depends on the storage room where wines are kept for aging is called as wine cellar. So winemakers run several tests periodically to check whether wine is aging in barrels or not. Some of the common test runs in laboratory, as you can see there, Brix, pH, titrable acidity, residual sugar, and whatnot. So if the results are not as per expectations, the winemaker can take action by modification a bit, by doing some modification on the wine. So once aging is finished, the wine is bottled with a screw cap or cork. So next, now that's all for the winemaking process. So as you can see, these are the reference that we get from the YouTube, and this is the URL, or you can scan it using QR code. And thank you. That's all from our group. Thank you for listening.